The slap echoed through Vyrek's nightclub like a gunshot. Nyra's head snapped sideways, red dress swirling as she hit the marble floor. The bass dropped silent. 300 bodies froze mid-dance, drinks suspended halfway to lips, conversations dying in throats. The sudden absence of sound was physical, pressing against eardrums like depth pressure. Evan Cross stood over her, hand still raised, face twisted with something between rage and satisfaction. His chest heaved with the exertion of violence, his carefully styled hair falling across his forehead. "Did you really think you could just walk in here?" His voice carried across the silent club, amplified by shock and acoustics. "Did you think I wouldn't notice?" Nyra didn't move, didn't cry, didn't even touch her reddening cheek. She simply looked up at him from the floor with eyes so calm, so utterly devoid of fear, that something flickered across Evan's face. Something that looked like uncertainty, like the ground shifting beneath his feet. Before we continue the story, make sure to hit that like button, subscribe and turn on the notification bell to get notified when new stories like this drop, and tell me where you're watching from and the time. The crowd remained frozen, caught in that terrible moment between action and reaction. Some people had phones out already, cameras recording. Others stood with mouths open, unsure whether to intervene or flee. The bartenders had stopped pouring. The servers had stopped moving. Even the lights seemed to hold their breath. "Get up," Evan snapped, louder now, performing for the frozen crowd. He needed them to see his control, his dominance, his right to command this moment. "Get up and explain what you're doing in my club." Nyra rose slowly, every movement deliberate and measured. The red dress, silk that caught light like blood, that moved like water over her body, settled around her like armor. She smoothed the fabric with steady hands, her fingers showing no tremor, no sign of the impact that had sent her sprawling moments before. When she stood at her full height, she was elegant, composed, utterly unbroken. "I came for a drink," she said quietly. Her voice was calm, almost conversational, as if she were discussing the weather rather than explaining her presence to a man who'd just struck her. "Bullshit." Evan circled her, predator instincts taking over. The crowd remained frozen, sensing something dangerous but unable to look away. This was the kind of scene that would be replayed on social media for weeks, dissected and analyzed and shared until everyone in Seoul had an opinion. "You came here to embarrass me. To remind everyone about your pathetic breakdown. About how I had to leave because you were too damaged to function." "I came for a drink," Nyra repeated, voice unchanging. She didn't track his movement as he circled, didn't turn to keep him in sight. She simply stood there, centered and still. "Still lying to yourself, I see. Still pretending you didn't fall apart when I left." He grabbed her arm, fingers digging in hard enough to bruise. His grip was possessive, controlling, designed to hurt and dominate. "You were nothing without me. You still are. Look at you, dressed up like you matter, walking into places you don't belong, hoping someone will notice you exist." The crowd shifted uncomfortably. A few people pulled out phones that hadn't already been recording. This was content. Drama. The kind of public spectacle that went viral, that launched think pieces and Twitter threads. Several people whispered to each other, trying to figure out who these people were, what history lay between them. Nyra's gaze never left Evan's face. She studied him like a scientist observing a specimen, cataloguing every micro-expression, every tell. "Are you finished?" The question landed like ice water. Simple. Direct. Completely unafraid. Evan's grip tightened, his fingers pressing into the soft flesh of her upper arm until the skin beneath his hands went white. "Finished. I haven't even started. You need to remember your place. You need to understand that coming here, showing your face after everything, it's pathetic. You're pathetic. Then why are you still talking to me?" His face flushed red, anger and embarrassment mixing into something volatile. "What? If I'm so insignificant, why waste words?" Nyra's voice remained perfectly level, almost curious. "Why not just walk away? Why not ignore me completely? Isn't that what you do to things that don't matter? Because you need to learn? Or because you're afraid?" The words hung in the air like a challenge, like a gauntlet thrown. Around them, the crowd leaned in imperceptibly, drawn by the shift in dynamic, by the way power was suddenly flowing in unexpected directions. Evan's hand moved before thought could stop it. The second slap was harder, fueled by humiliation and rage and the terrible realization that he was losing control of this moment. Nyra stumbled backward into a high-top table. Champagne glasses shattered on marble, the sound of breaking crystal punctuating the violence. The crowd gasped collectively, the sound rippling through the space. Afraid. Evan's voice cracked on the word, his composure fracturing. Of you. You're a ghost. A memory I barely think about. You mean nothing. He was trying to convince himself as much as her, trying to rebuild the narrative where he had all the power. Nyra steadied herself against the table, her hand finding purchase on the cool surface. Blood trickled from the corner of her mouth, a thin red line that matched her dress. She wiped it away with the back of her hand, studying the red smear like it was mildly interesting, like it belonged to someone else entirely. Then she did something that made Evan's stomach drop. She smiled. Not a pained smile. Not a desperate smile. A knowing smile. The smile of someone who'd just won a game their opponent didn't even know they were playing. And she pressed something in her clutch purse. What are you? Evan started, but the words died in his throat. The music cut. Every speaker in Virex went silent simultaneously. The sudden absence of sound was physical, more present than the bass had been. People looked around, confused, phone still recording but now capturing something different. Something planned. Then the lights dimmed. Not out. Just. Controlled. Strategic. The dance floor floods faded to blood red, washing everything in crimson. The VIP sections went dark entirely, their occupants suddenly invisible. Only the bar remained lit, and the space where Nyra and Evan stood, spotlighted like performers on a stage, like actors in a play reaching its climax. What the hell is this? Evan demanded, but his voice had lost its edge. There was uncertainty there now, and the beginning of real fear. The main entrance doors closed. Not slammed. Just clicked shut with mechanical precision, the electronic locks engaging with quiet finality. Followed by every other exit. The fire escapes. The service doors. Even the emergency exits that weren't supposed to lock from inside, that existed for safety, for escape. The crowd's energy shifted from curiosity to unease. People started looking at the exits, realizing they were trapped. Started murmuring to each other, asking if this was legal, if they should be worried. A man in a black suit appeared at the DJ booth. Then another at the bar. Then 3 more near the VIP sections. They materialized from shadows and service corridors like they'd been waiting there all along, invisible until needed. 7 men total. All wearing identical black suits, crisp white shirts, no ties. All standing perfectly still with hands clasped in front of them, military-straight posture. Silent. Watchful. Terrifying in their complete lack of aggression. Everyone needs to leave, Evan announced, trying to regain control, trying to reassert authority he no longer possessed. Clubs closing early tonight. Everyone out. Now. Nobody moved. They couldn't. The exits were locked, and the men in black suits stood between the crowd and freedom. The man at the DJ booth spoke into a radio, his voice calm and professional. Clear the floor. Escort guests to the holding lounge. No one leaves the building until we're finished here. What? Evan's voice pitched higher, cracking with panic. No one leaves. Who the fuck do you think? Sir. One of the suited men approached Evan with deliberate slowness, each step measured and precise. His face was expressionless, professional. You're going to want to be quiet now. For your own safety. I own this club. I'll have all of you arrested. You manage this club. On behalf of the Cade family. Who actually own it? The man's expression never changed, never showed anger or satisfaction. Just patient correction. And they're here. Evan's face went white. All the blood drained from his features, leaving him pale and suddenly smaller. His hands started shaking. The crowd began moving, not fleeing in panic, but being guided with professional efficiency. Systematically. The 7 men in black suits coordinated like military personnel, like a well-trained security detail handling a delicate situation. They directed 300 confused, drunk, recording patrons toward the club's secondary lounge without raising voices or showing weapons. Firm hands on shoulders. Quiet directions. Blocking paths and opening others. It was choreographed, practiced, perfect. Some people protested. Most went quietly, sensing that resistance would be futile and potentially dangerous. Phones still recorded everything, capturing footage that would spread across social media within hours, launching 1,000 conspiracy theories. Within 5 minutes, the main floor was empty. Except for Nyra, still standing in her spotlight, blood at her lip, bruises forming on her arm. And Evan, suddenly looking very small, very alone, very aware that he'd made a catastrophic mistake. The main entrance opened. Not the regular doors that the crowd had been sealed behind. The private entrance behind the coat check. The one only ownership used, the one with retinal scanners and keycard access and security that cost more than most people's cars. 4 more men in black suits entered first. Not rushing. Not aggressive. Just claiming space. They positioned themselves at cardinal points around the room, north, south, east, west, creating a perimeter that felt like prison walls, like a cage constructed from human bodies and implied violence. Then he walked in. Lucian Cade moved through space like water, fluid, inevitable, utterly calm. 6'2". Lean muscle barely contained by an expensive black suit that had been tailored to accommodate both his frame and the weapons he probably carried. Dark hair swept back from a face that could have been carved from marble. Tattoos visible on his neck and hands, intricate, beautiful, clearly significant. Dragons and symbols and script in languages most people couldn't read. His face was angular, almost cruel in its symmetry, with sharp cheekbones and a jaw that looked like it could cut glass. Everything about him screamed danger, power, control. Except for his eyes. His eyes were kind. He scanned the room once, a tactical assessment that took maybe 3 seconds. Located Nyra. And everything about his posture changed. The predator became protector. The threat became safety. He crossed the floor in 10 strides and dropped to one knee in front of her, completely ignoring Evan's existence. As if the man who'd just struck her twice was furniture, was scenery, was nothing worth acknowledging. Nyra. His voice was low, controlled, but underneath it was something devastated. Something barely leashed. Are you hurt? She touched his face gently, her fingers tracing the line of his jaw. A gesture of intimacy, of reassurance. I'm fine. Your mouth is bleeding. His eyes tracked the blood, cataloguing the injury with the precision of someone who knew violence intimately. It's superficial. Lucian's jaw tightened almost imperceptibly, the only outward sign of the fury he was controlling. He reached up and brushed his thumb across the blood at her lip with such tenderness that the contrast to the violence still hanging in the air was jarring. Gentle enough to heal. Careful enough not to hurt. Do you want to leave? He asked, giving her the choice, the control. Not yet. Then we stay. He stood, helping her up with one hand under her elbow, and finally, looked at Evan. Evan had been backing away slowly during the exchange, each small step taking him farther from Nyra and Lucian. He'd made it maybe 15 feet before realizing the men in suits had closed ranks behind him. Escape wasn't an option. The perimeter was complete, the cage sealed. Lucian. Evan's voice tried for casual and landed somewhere near terrified, cracking on the syllables. I didn't know she was, we used to, it was just a misunderstanding between exes, you know how it is. You struck my wife. Lucian's tone didn't rise. Didn't sharpen. Just stated fact, simple and devastating. In public. Twice. In front of witnesses. Your wife. Evan's laugh was pure panic, high-pitched and desperate. That's Nyra. You married Nyra. That can't be right. She doesn't, she's not. 3 years ago. Lucian's voice remained perfectly level. We married 3 years ago. Quietly. Privately. Because she values her privacy and I respect that. But she She doesn't wear a ring. She doesn't act married. She doesn't. Married. Lucian repeated, as if explaining something simple to a child who refused to understand. Which makes her family. My family. And you struck family. You put your hands on someone under my protection. One of the suited men produced a chair, expensive leather, the kind from the VIP section that cost thousands of dollars. He placed it in the center of the spotlight with careful precision and stepped back, melting into the perimeter. Sit, Lucian said to Evan. Listen, I'll apologize. I'll do whatever you want. I'll leave, I'll never speak to her again. I want you to sit. The command in his voice was absolute. Not loud. Not aggressive. Just undeniable. The voice of someone who'd given orders in life or death situations and expected instant obedience. Evan Saturday. His legs seemed to give out, depositing him in the chair more than choosing to sit. Lucian circled the chair slowly, hands clasped behind his back like a professor lecturing, like a general reviewing troops. Tell me your version of tonight. What happened here? She came to the club. I recognized her. We talked. Things got heated between us, you know how exes can be. You hit her. It was reflex. She said things that made me. What things? Lucian stopped circling, standing directly in front of Evan. Evan's mouth opened and closed, his mind racing to find words that would justify his actions. I don't remember exactly. It happened fast. Strange. She said almost nothing. I have security footage. Would you like to see it? One of the suited men held up a tablet, the screen showing crystal clear video from multiple angles. Evan striking Nyra. Her falling. Him grabbing her arm. The second slap. All of it captured in high definition. Time-stamped, admissible in court. That looks bad, Lucian observed conversationally. That looks like assault. Battery. In front of witnesses. In a nightclub you manage. That's criminal. That's also grounds for immediate termination. And civil liability. And if the victim chooses extensive legal consequences that could follow you for the rest of your life. Please. Evan's voice broke, all pretense of control gone. I made a mistake. I didn't know she was married to you. I thought she was still the same broken girl I left. I didn't know. Still what? Silence. Heavy and damning. Still broken. Nyra spoke for the first time since Lucian arrived. She stepped forward, moving into the spotlight beside Evan's chair. Her shadow fell across his face. Is that what you were going to say? Evan looked up at her, and for the first time, actually saw her. Not the fragile woman he remembered from 5 years ago. Not the version of her he'd constructed in his mind to justify his cruelty. Someone different. Someone who'd learned to carry pain like a weapon instead of a wound. Nyra, I'm sorry. I am. But you have to understand back then, you were falling apart. You needed help I couldn't give. I couldn't save you. I had to leave for my own mental health. You didn't leave because I needed help. Nyra's voice was surgical, cutting through his justifications with precision. You left because helping would have required effort. Required staying through the hard parts. Required seeing me as human instead of entertaining. Required putting someone else's needs before your own comfort. That's not fair. You told me I was unstable. Unlovable. Too damaged for anyone to want. You said those exact words. Do you remember? She crouched down so they were eye level, forcing him to meet her gaze. Or have you convinced yourself you were kinder than you were? Evan's silence was answer enough. You said them when I was grieving my sister. When I'd just lost the only family I had left in the world. When I was drowning and reaching for anything solid. Nyra's voice remained steady, factual, but underneath was steel. And you looked at me, looked at my pain, my raw grief, and decided it was too inconvenient. So you convinced me the pain was my fault. That I was the problem. That I was broken beyond repair. And you left. I was 23. I didn't know how to handle. You're 30 now. Still don't know how to take responsibility. still blaming circumstances instead of choices. Evan flinched like she'd slapped him. Lucian had been watching silently, letting Nyra lead, letting her have this moment. Now he spoke. Nyra told me about you. Years ago. When we first started seeing each other. She told me everything, the grief, the gaslighting, the way you made her believe she was worthless. I asked if she wanted me to handle it. She said no. She said she'd handle it when she was ready. He moved to stand behind Nyra's shoulder. Not possessive. Not controlling. Supportive. A foundation for her to lean against if needed. Tonight, when she told me she was coming here, I asked if she wanted company. She said no. But she also gave me access to her location. And a way to reach her if needed. Because we're partners. We trust each other. We communicate. Lucian's expression hardened, the kindness in his eyes replaced by something colder. And then I watched security footage of you hitting her. Twice. And I stopped trusting that you deserved to breathe the same air as her. One of the suited men stepped forward. Placed something on the floor beside Evan's chair with a soft thud. A black bag. Compact. Heavy-looking. Medical equipment visible through the partially open zipper. That's a medical kit, Lucian explained conversationally, like he was discussing the weather. The Black Court, that's what we call my people, they're trained in controlled discipline. Punishment that teaches without killing. They know how to hurt someone badly enough to ensure a lesson is learned without causing permanent damage that would create legal complications. Usually takes about 45 minutes for a lesson to really sink in. Most people pass out around the 30-minute mark from the pain. We wake them up and continue until the full lesson is delivered. Evan's breathing went shallow, rapid. Panic attack levels. But here's the thing. Lucian crouched down on the other side of the chair, creating a triangle with Nyra and Evan. I don't want to hurt you. Honestly, I don't. What I want is for you to understand. Do you understand why hitting Nyra was a mistake? Yes. Yes, I understand. No. You understand you got caught. You understand there are consequences you can't avoid. But do you understand why the action itself was wrong? Beyond the fact that she's my wife. Beyond the fact that violence is illegal. Do you understand why she didn't deserve it? Why no one deserves it? Evan's face crumpled, tears starting to track down his cheeks. She was just standing there, looking at me like I didn't matter anymore. Like the years we had together meant nothing. It made me feel small, Nyra finished. It made you feel small and insignificant. Because you realized I'd survived you. That I'd built a life you weren't part of. That I was happy without you. That I'd found love that didn't require me to minimize myself. Yes. The word came out broken, honest finally. And that terrified you. Because if I survived, if I'm happy, it means what you said about me wasn't true. It means you were wrong. It means you were the problem, not me. It means your justifications for leaving, for being cruel, were lies you told yourself to avoid guilt. Evan covered his face with his hands, shoulders shaking. The room was utterly silent except for his ragged breathing. Even the men in black suits stood motionless, witnessing this moment of reckoning. Nyra stood slowly, every movement deliberate. I came here tonight because I knew you'd be here. I dressed this way because I knew you'd notice. I wanted you to see me. I wanted you to realize what you lost. Not for revenge. Not to hurt you. For closure. For the final proof that I survived despite your best efforts to convince me I couldn't. I'm sorry, Evan whispered through his hands. I'm so sorry. You deserved better than me. I know. I was cruel. I was manipulative. I destroyed you. No. Nyra's voice cut through his spiraling self-flagellation. You tried to destroy me. There's a difference. I broke. I shattered into pieces I thought I could never put back together. But I didn't disappear. I rebuilt. Slowly. Painfully. With help. She glanced at Lucian with profound gratitude. With love. Real love. The kind that doesn't run when things get hard. The kind that stays through grief and healing and setbacks. She turned back to Evan. You hitting me tonight? That was the last bit of power you had over me. The last piece of my past that still scared me, still had the ability to make me doubt myself. And now it's gone. Because I faced it. I faced you. And you're just, small. Human. Flawed. Not the monster I'd built in my head over 5 years of healing. Lucian stood. Decision made. Evan Cross, you have 2 choices. First choice, I let the Black Court teach you what happens to men who hit women under my protection. It'll hurt. You'll survive. But you'll remember every second for the rest of your life. Evan's whole body trembled, vibrating with terror. Second choice, you leave Seoul tonight. Permanently. You resign from this club effective immediately. You never contact Nyra again. You never speak her name. You become a memory we don't have to think about. A closed chapter. And if I choose the second option? Evan's voice was barely audible. Then you walk out of here with a story about the night you almost died but were shown mercy by a woman you didn't deserve. You get to keep your life, your health, your future. You just don't get to keep Seoul. I'll leave. I'll leave tonight. I swear on everything I have. Good choice. Lucian gestured to his men. Escort Mr. Cross to his apartment. Give him 2 hours to pack essentials. Then escort him to the airport. I don't care where he goes. Tokyo, Singapore, back to wherever he came from. Just not here. Not Seoul. Not ever again. 2 of the suited men moved forward. They didn't grab Evan, just stood on either side of him, waiting patiently for him to stand on his own power. Evan stood on shaking legs, looking like he might collapse. He looked at Nyra one last time, really seeing her. For what it's worth, and I know it's worth very little, I really am sorry. You deserved better. You deserved everything I couldn't give. I know, Nyra said again, voice soft but firm. Now I have it. They led him away, the small procession moving toward the private exit. The door closed behind them with finality. The moment the door clicked shut, Nyra's knees buckled. Lucian caught her before she hit the ground, arms wrapping around her as 3 years of control finally cracked. She didn't cry exactly, but she shook, violent tremors that rattled through her whole body as adrenaline and fear and relief and triumph crashed together in a wave she couldn't control. I've got you, Lucian murmured, lowering them both to the floor, cradling her against his chest. I've got you. You're safe. I thought I could do it without feeling anything, Nyra whispered against his chest, her voice muffled. I thought I was strong enough to face him and stay numb. You are strong enough. You were perfect. But being strong doesn't mean not feeling. It means feeling everything, fear, anger, triumph, grief, and still standing. Still choosing dignity over revenge. I wanted to hurt him. The confession was quiet, ashamed. I know. When he hit me the second time, I wanted you to hurt him. I wanted you to make him suffer. I know. But you stopped me. Because revenge would have given him power over you. Walking away, letting him go, gives you freedom. Lucian pressed his lips to her hair, breathing in her scent. I'm so fucking proud of you. They sat there for several minutes, the empty nightclub echoing around them. The men in black suits had retreated to the perimeter, giving them privacy. Finally, Nyra pulled back, wiping her eyes. I need to tell you something. Anything. I knew he'd be here tonight. I planned this encounter. Not the violence, I didn't expect him to actually hit me. But I knew if I came here, dressed like this, he'd notice. He'd confront me. And I'd have my chance to face him on my terms. She met Lucian's gaze directly, honest and vulnerable. I used you. I put the tracking on my phone and gave you club access because I knew if things went bad, you'd come. But I manipulated the situation. I'm sorry. Lucian was quiet for a long moment, his expression unreadable. Then he started laughing, deep, genuine amusement. What? Nyra frowned, confused. Why are you laughing? Because I knew. You, what? Nyra, I've known you for 5 years. Married you for 3. I know how your mind works, how you plan, how you operate. The second you mentioned coming to Virex specifically, I knew exactly what you were doing. He cupped her face with both hands, thumbs brushing her cheeks. And I let you. Because you needed closure. And because I trusted you to handle it. I trusted your judgment, your strength, your ability to know when you needed backup. You could have told me you knew. And rob you of the satisfaction of confessing. Never. He kissed her forehead gently. We're partners, remember. That means trusting each other's plans. Even the dangerous ones. Especially the dangerous ones. You're insane. Says the woman who deliberately provoked her abusive ex in his own nightclub. Fair point. They stood together, Lucian keeping one arm around her waist. The remaining Black Court members were already cleaning up, removing the chair, the medical kit that was never opened, resetting the lighting systems to normal. Making it look like nothing had happened. What happens now? Nyra asked. Now we go home. You take a long bath. We order food we don't need. And we never think about Heaven Cross again. Lucian paused. Unless you want to press charges. The footage is solid. We could bury him legally if you want that closure. No. He's gone. That's enough. Nyra looked around the empty club one more time. Although I should probably change. This dress is evidence of a crime. Keep it. Or burn it. Your choice entirely. Nyra considered the red silk that had been armor tonight. Protection. A costume for a performance she'd been rehearsing for 3 years without knowing it. I'll keep it. As a reminder. Of what? That I'm not afraid anymore. She took Lucian's hand, their fingers interlacing perfectly. That I can walk into rooms that used to terrify me. Face people who used to break me. And walk out stronger than when I entered. You were always strong, Lucian said. You just needed time to remember. They walked toward the exit together. At the door, Nyra paused and looked back one last time at the empty club. The spotlight was off now. The space where she'd been hit, where she'd bled, where she'd finally closed a chapter of her life, it was just floor again. Marble and memory. Goodbye, Evan, she whispered to the empty room. Then she stepped through the door into the cool night air, Lucian's hand warm in hers, and didn't look back. Asterisk if you've made it this far, you've witnessed a love story that wasn't about being saved, but about being seen. A woman who was told she was broken learned she was just becoming. A man who controlled violence learned when not to use it. But most importantly, you saw what real strength looks like. It's not about never falling. It's about standing up, facing what terrifies you, and choosing freedom over revenge. Asterisk.